Hello, brothers and sisters. It's been a while, but in the midst of everything, I've started to look into convergence points. The world's kind of gone into a nutty place, and quite frankly, I've been having headaches and feeling completely confused about the nature of everything. But when I started going into Revelation 13, I started realizing we're at a convergence point. And interestingly enough, what clued me off is more pop culture mentality. So, in going through my normal YouTube videos, I came across the End of Days Predictions by Sylvia Brown by username Marcopolo Malik. And I also came across Mind-Blowing Prophecies Muhammad, ManyProphetsOneMessage YouTube channel. Now, what really caught me off guard is more of the fact that there were several prophecies within the Muhammad thing that really just make sense, whether it's the building of large buildings and the dispersion of wealth amongst the various nations. But the ones that really caught me off guard were in this End of Days prediction by Sylvia Brown, which the second one in the video talks about the end of the 2020 presidency basically being the end of the executive branch in the presidency because people would be fed up. The other one is the third one, which is the end of retirement plans in the stock market. And then the eighth plan talked about a period of 42, and somewhere between 2008 and 2020, there would be a heart attack with a president, and the person who succeeded him would try and go to war with North Korea, which makes for an interesting whole set of things. So going back to the initial premise, I started looking at 42, and I started realizing, 42 is in Revelation 13, specifically in 567. The interesting thing that I also found was that we go to another pop culture reference, which would be the Hitchhikers Guide to the Galaxy, which was written by Doug Adams in 1979. So technically it was being written in 1978, which will have its own importance there. But the one thing is the question that's asked is, what's the meaning of life, the universe, and everything else? And after a long time, these people came back after 7.5 million years to find out the answer was 42. Of course, everybody was upset, and the computer basically said, you gotta figure out the 10 million year program to basically figure out the ultimate question is. Well, here it is. It's kind of thrown out in here. So we've got the two systems, which is the Roman, which is the UN system, and then Islam, which is your first system, the beast one. They're at the convergence point. And it really started in 1978 within our calendar and is really coming to a peak now, 42 years later. You back it out to the Ethiopian calendar in 1970, which would be the same thing. We signed a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, began with the Environmental Protection Agency, cough, all the health issues, and we were about 50% of the world population. Flip that over into the current Ethiopian calendar. Guess what year it is? It's 2012. So going over here, I have the calendar conversion. We're currently in megabit 2012. And if you converted 1978 back, it comes to 1970. So you see there's this numerical relationship of 42 that's really popping in here. And it's really a function of where we're at in the time and the cycles. Now, the important thing is to really look at your Roman beast, which is the UN. Primary function is governmental, which is the theory of democracy, but it's really an oligarchy. Your secondary nature is spirituality. It's not religion. It's really just spirituality, how you feel. Endgame there is commercialism or chipping, so the buying and selling through control. Movies that kind of tell you this premise would be A Brave New World or Westworld. And these were all kind of given in the clues of the End of Days production. If you're really looking for the end of all these different things where people are controlled, you'd essentially need to get rid of the monetary system and the banking system, which is kind of what we're seeing with this coronavirus and the shutdown of the government. Now, we'll go into www, but everybody wants to say it's the Antichrist, but a lot of different translations point to it's humanity's number. So www.666 could be a World Wide Web. On the other side, you got Islam, which is your first beast. Its primary function is religion. The idea is democracy, but it's really a dictatorship. The secondary role is governmental. endgame there is more dystopian Sharia law. The type of endgame you'd see is 1984 Equilibrium. Clue there really goes into the video that I had said before, the mind-blowing prophecies of Muhammad. Not too much to say there, other than the fact that they all kind of converge at this point, where we can look at Revelation 13 and kind of see some of these relationships. So if you're looking at the fatal wound, you can say the papacy here. You can say the end of the Islamic Empire after the Second World War. They both go into the same time frame. Well, 1948. That's when you saw Israel come back in. And there was a fatal wound. And then the first beast, the UN, wondered and followed after the oil, the actors of Islam. I mean, we've had a basic Middle East crisis since then. The Arab Spring. So in 5, 6, and 7, we talk about blaspheme. Islam's been doing it for a while, just from the Quran. And if you look at the Dome of the Rock, it says Jesus Christ isn't God's son, and God has no son. You go here, and for blasphemous, you really just go to materialism and atheism. We know those all the time, especially as Christians, because God's people who are getting questioned here for the 42 months are Christians. God's people who are getting questioned here are the Jews, especially in Israel. So in 11, when we start talking about who's there, the second beast coming to it, they're running the gun, especially with the UN system, but they're going to empower this guy, which is Islam. So we're about to see a convergence here. 16, with the buy or sell, we know that the government is going to eventually destroy the banking system, or the banking system is going to destroy itself, and there's going to be some sort of different government. On 18, the number of wisdom is 666. You can say in the name of Allah, which actually translates to 666 numerically, or you can go to www, which is 666 in Hebrew, humanity's number. In either case, everything's kind of converging to a point where you can't really avoid the fact that it doesn't matter which way you see the end game or which system you see is bringing forth the end game. They're all kind of converging. So what'll end up happening is probably a lot of nightmares. But if Sylvia's claim is technically correct, and you'd have to assume some of these false prophets have to seem real if everybody's going to fall to the lie. In essence, the end of presidency in 2020 doesn't seem too far off, and the ends of retirement plans and stock and monetary systems with the collapse and the coronavirus and everything else doesn't seem too far off.